There's one more angle to this yet. The McCain campaign may be taking a page out of the playbook of the nexus of politics and terror. Just last week, Senator McCain, having greeted this economic crisis with those words, quote, "I think still the fundamentals of our economy are strong." Today, in explaining the need to suspend the campaign and to postpone the debate, McCain's advisors saying that without action, the country could slide into a depression by Monday. One added, "We'll see 12% unemployment if action is not completed." And when Governor Palin was asked by Katie Couric about the risk of another depression if the bailout plan does not pass, she too channeled her inner scary.
If this doesn't pass, do you think there's a risk of another Great Depression?
Unfortunately, that is the road that America may find itself on. Not necessarily this, as it's been proposed, has to pass, or we're going to find ourselves in another Great Depression. But there has got to be action taken, bipartisan effort, Congress not pointing fingers at this point at one another, but finding the solution to this.
Let's bring in Democratic strategist Chris Kofinas, former communications director on the campaign of John Edwards. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
All right, 9 days ago, the fundamentals of our economy were strong. This afternoon, the McCain campaign starting to talk about a depression by Monday. Is that not the kind of irresponsible statement known to incite, what's the word I'm looking for, panic?
You know, it's basically whiplash messaging. I mean, for a campaign to basically have a 180-degree turn in its messaging in such a short amount of time really you have to start questioning the stability of this campaign. I mean, the big problem I have with this change of tone is to go from the economy is fundamentally sound to now we need to suspend the debates and go to Washington to deal with this. You know, it really raises doubts and questions about this so-called putting the country first. You know, you could have easily said what John McCain said today, last week. It was a crisis last week. It's not about putting the country first. It seems about putting the campaign first. That's the problem I have with this, you know, little conversion he's having today and trying to make it seem like he's doing the right thing.
Well, it's what do these two things have to do with each other? If he'd said, well, look, to avert any further crisis, we need to all take our shoes off, it would have made just as much sense as we're going to postpone a debate. All right, another point. Governor Palin told Katie Couric it's not necessarily a question of the bailout having to pass as it's currently on the books, or we're going to find ourselves in another Great Depression. But then Senator McCain told the same interviewer he doesn't know if it would exactly be the Depression. Are they not, even between the presidential candidate and the vice presidential candidate, bothering to coordinate the talking points anymore?
Well, you know, they're coordinating their appearances, and that's obviously helped McCain, but they don't seem to be coordinating their talking points very well. I mean, the problem, I think, with Governor Palin is every time you see her in one of these interviews, and she hasn't done many of them, I think this is basically the second or third, you know, you just have more and more doubts about her ability to step into this position, God forbid, you know, if McCain is the president, something happens to him. And that is, I think, a serious question that voters have. And when you see her in these interviews, it doesn't calm fears, it raises them. And so the notion that they can't even coordinate whether this is a crisis or not, again, just raises serious questions about where this campaign is going and how they think they're going to be able to lead this country. You cannot lead this country to a better place if you basically can't figure out on a day-to-day basis what you think about where the country is. It's just insanity.
By the way, there's more breaking news on this, Chris. The White House is now saying it has invited both Senators McCain and Obama to attend a meeting tomorrow at the White House, along with the other congressional leaders, to talk about this bill. So we're now amping this up, and the White House came out with a statement saying it agreed with Senator McCain's wish to postpone this whole thing. But the idea of the postponement in particular, Congressman Frank, the chairman of the Financial Services Committee, today said this gambit by McCain is, quote, was the longest Hail Mary pass in the history of either football or Marys. It's the fear card and the lowest percentage play in the sport of football. Again, is there a realization in that campaign, do you suppose, that they've staked the entire chance of becoming president on something this bizarre and tried to do two of them in a period of about a month?
You know, these gimmicks have a way of blowing up in your face. I mean, what the McCain campaign may have done today is played Russian roulette, and they just loaded the sixth bullet. And I don't understand why they think this thing is going to keep on working. The problem is consistency is the important thing in message. And what I think you saw from Senator Obama today was a very even-handed, calm approach to a very serious crisis. Instead, what you're seeing from Senator McCain is this kind of schizophrenic messaging that from day to day changes. That doesn't calm fears, that incites fears and panic. And so in terms of Hail Marys, yeah, it is a big Hail Mary. And I think the challenge now for the Obama campaign is the spin war that's going to follow this over the next couple of days, because you know the McCain campaign is going to go out there and say over and over again, this is another example of John McCain putting the country first. It isn't. It's about him putting the campaign first.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Ben Smith at Politico.com got a hold of the actual memo from the McCain campaign to its surrogates to talk about suspending the campaign. So it's political talking points about putting the economic crisis ahead of politics. So that wraps it up. Chris Kofinas, former communications director with the Edwards campaign. Thank you, Chris, as always.
Thanks, Keith.
The McCain play certainly did change the political discussion on at least two fronts. Disastrous poll numbers, Obama +9 in the Washington Post survey, and even more and more recent straight-line connections between McCain's campaign manager and the effort by the failed mortgage giant Freddie Mac to avoid government regulation and maintain access to John McCain. That campaign manager getting his own kind of financial bailout tonight.